Hey there, everyone. This is Samuel Johnson, and welcome back to the Phantom Perspectives. And I apologize in advance if I break in any coughing fits or whatever during like that during this vlog. I'm kind of coming down with something. I'm just kind of not really in my full faculties right now. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. Today we're going to be discussing episode 17 of Danny Phantom Maternal Instinct. And in this episode, Danny Danny gets to spend some more quality time with his mother. What's going on is that Danny's mom, Maddie is starting to feel like she and Danny are not connecting as much as they used to. As such, what she wants to do is spend some alone time with him, so that they can reconnect and so forth. But but they don't really seem to have the opportunity. That's it. Coincidentally, quote unquote, they get a letter from a ghost mailman that apparently says that they have won a free mother and son vacation to somewhere in Florida. So, what's actually kind of amusing is that Jack's the one that gets the letter, and he doesn't even realize that it's just kind of amusing. But Maddie just jumps on this immediately because she wants to spend some time with Danny, and Danny's disappointed because he was actually going to do what Tim said that he thought what Danny should be doing, and actually trying to improve his powers because, well, he still doesn't know that much about them, and he knows. And I'm sorry if I keep reacting or if you heard that, but there's construction going on in my house / my dad and my brothers are trying to put something in. But anyway, so like I said, Danny actually was trying to train and use his powers because compared to Vlad, who's had years of practice, he's just still an amateur. So, but with this invitation, that's all down the drain. As such, Danny and Maddie go off for their time, which leaves Jazz and Jack stuck with each other. However, as Danny and his mom are in the plane, they find that they're not in Florida, they're in Colorado, I think. And on top of that, the guy who was flying their plane has jumped ship. As such, they can't, and unfortunately, the plane's controls are frozen, so to speak, or no, they're locked. Yeah, that's it. The controls are locked, so they can't change it. And while Danny does want to phase his mother out of there, he can't touch her because before they left, his dad equipped Maddie with a new device, a belt called the Spectre Deflector that causes anything ghostly that touches her to receive a shock. It's like when you have an invisible fence. It's like when you have a dog with an invisible fence. It'll just send a jolt to them every time they get to. It'll just send a jolt right to the ghost when they touch her. So Danny can't even touch his mother to get her out of there. Thankfully, there are parachutes nearby with their names on them, making this feel a little bit too contrived. And even when they jump out of the plane, it's revealed that their pilot was in fact a ghost, who reveals that this was all an evil plan to trick them into coming here. As such, they start roughing it through the woods until they finally make their way to, well, Vlad's cabin. Yep, Vlad is the one behind all this. He has, and and it's even hinted in the institute that funded this little excursion called the Dalv Institute. Vlad backwards, get it? As such, he shows up and offers them to stay at his lodge for a while in the meantime. But while he's giving them the hoedown, giving them fruit baskets and whatever, he gives an order to a little watch that says they're here, killed Jack, which results in several mutated ghost animals attacking Fenton Works, and so Jack and Jazz actually bond to fight them, end up working side by side to fight them off, which also is a nice little story too. And which I'm not going to really get into detail about that because that's essentially what it is. But I will talk about it later when I actually do state my opinions on the episode. But in the meantime, Danny knows that this was all just one giant plot, and while he and Vlad are still not willing to reveal their secrets in front of Maddie, they do still give thinly veiled threats. However, at this point, Vlad does lay bare that he is interested in Maddie. He doesn't even say any, he doesn't even try hiding it. I've forgiven Jack for many things, causing the accident that ruined my life, taking you away, the backwash incident, and then it's actually a running gag throughout this entire episode. I'll get to that. Might get to that later, might not, but bottom line, when Maddie picks up on that, and so Vlad admits that he was always loved Maddie, and that as long as they're here, they should stay with him, her and Danny. They can be a new family. What did he say? And she just storms out, which yeah, it's just kind of funny too. She even admits that while Jack may be dim, he means well, and she loves him. So she's not gonna leave Vlad. She's not gonna leave him for Vlad. So Vlad screams out after them, "It's like you'll regret when you spurn my affection." So later that night, Maddie sets up a campsite for herself and Danny, but Danny still doesn't want to get close to her because she's still wearing the Spectre deflector. So every time she touches him, he still gets a shock. So he intentionally sets himself up as far away from her as he can without leaving the campsite. However, just before they go to bed, a ghost bear comes out and takes Danny, and I have to mention I'll mention it later. And so it takes Danny and brings him back to the lodge where there's all these other mutated ghost animals there. Apparently, Vlad's been experimenting on, which I guess you could say he actually took real animals and turned them and killed them, because surrounding the entire cabin are the pelts and heads and trophies of various animals that have been killed. So this makes sense. So pretty much this is just his own little private army of ghosts. Danny, of course, is ready to fight Vlad, but before they can get into an actual battle, Vlad hits Danny with some weird device that he calls the Vladicus Maximus, which pretty much shorts Danny's powers completely, making him completely human. As such, Vlad tells Danny that he'll give him a 5-minute head start, and that for the next 3 hours his powers will no longer work, and he's gonna sick his ghost animals on Danny, saying he'll give him a 5-minute head start, and by that he means 5 seconds. And so Danny runs off with these animals chasing after him, but thankfully his mother finds him and saves him. Because they make a joke about this, that when they crash, her jumpsuit doesn't have a cell phone, but it's got all this gear for fighting ghosts. And so she managed to take out most of the ghosts, with the remaining ones running away. And so Danny's just happy is just happy that she saved him, and it gives her a hug. Because again, as long as his powers are shorted, the Spectre deflector won't work on him. As such, they run off, and Maddie ultimately admits that while they may be stuck here, while they're stuck here, they might have to rely on Vlad after all, while she doesn't want to be around him, he's the only guy here that may in fact have a phone. As such, while Danny doesn't like to admit this either, it's probably true, but before they go there, Maddie sticks the Spectre deflector on Danny to try and keep him safe. So Danny realizes that when midnight comes, because Vlad did this 3 hours to midnight, his powers will come back on, and he'll be shorted and he'll be shocked, so he needs to get the key from Maddie. And just before they go into the Master's estate, he does get the key off and unlocks the Spectre deflector, but he keeps it on standby. As such, they go inside, and Maddie intentionally starts giving goo eyes towards Vlad because she needs him to she needs to let him welcome her in. In the meantime, Danny realizes they're 3 minutes to midnight, and so he messes with the hands on a grandfather clock to make it look like there's 15 minutes left. As such, Danny puts a new plan into motion, and also does a similar thing to Vlad, only in this case he says, "Yeah, you're right, my dad's an idiot, you're a great father figure, come here and give me a hug, Dad." And Vlad, because he is desperate to have Maddie and Danny as family, accepts the hug, only for Danny to lock the Spectre deflector on him, which starts shocking him as well. As such, when midnight comes, Danny goes ghost, and they begin fighting, but Vlad's at a disadvantage because the Spectre deflector is limiting his abilities. He still can do a lot more than Danny does, but it's severely limited. Like, when he tries duplicating, all he can do is create 2 heads, and on top of that, he's a lot slower. So Danny's able to get more punches in, is able to fight him off, and he ultimately beats Danny ultimately beats him. Vlad still thinks he's got the upper hand, though, because he's got his army of ghost animals, but Danny says, "Well, why are you fighting me? I'm not the one that took your pelts and mounted them on my wall." And so when they see all the pelts, they instead turn on Vlad, and of course Vlad thinks he can take him, before Danny shocks him with the Vladicus Maximus, which in turn shorts out his powers. And so Danny tells him to run, and well, the ghost animal chases after him. In the meantime, while Maddie wasn't able to find a phone, she found all these other travel vehicles, ATVs, Humvees, and well, a helicopter. And so they take that, and Danny admits that he did actually have a good time spent with his mother. As such, they return home, and Vlad and Jack and Matt and Jazz manage to fend off most of the ghost animals that Vlad set on them. And of course, and so everyone, both parties act like they just had boring weekend. They just had boring weekends, and so the episode ends with Jazz riding a ghost gopher, I think, or otter, I don't know, out of the house trying to get it out. So again, this episode is it's a little dumb, but it's just kind of fun, a little fun, a little very dumb, but just kind of fun in what it is. I like seeing Vlad, of course, because he's always a guy that does challenge it. That always. I like seeing Vlad in this case. Like, this is the second time we've seen Vlad as an actual force against Danny. And what I like in the episode is that Danny does kind of hold him as a gold standard, so to speak. As Vlad, as like Vlad said in his last episode, he was a major player, and he was since he's had years of experience with his ghost powers, Danny is pretty much just an amateur to him, and so we start to see Danny actually trying to put in effort to try and master his powers so much that he can actually fight him. That's actually what happened. Like, to see him in the beginning, that's what happens in the beginning of the episode. He's testing his flight powers, his invisibility, intangibility, etc., all that stuff, just because he's trying to get on an even keel with Vlad. Even to the point where he turns himself into where he tries his hand at duplicating himself, which in turn causes him to have two heads, which becomes a mess when he becomes a human. Though a simple slap to the noggin is enough to fix it. But again, another thing I like though is honestly the familial bonding. Again, that's always a nice highlight of the show. And this episode just shows that the Fenton. This shows even more how much the Fenton family is just a family of ass kickers. As we see Maddie and Danny having to bond with each other while also contending with Vlad's advances / ghost army, and on top of that, Vlad is still smart, shorting out Danny's powers to make him reliant, pretty much saying don't have a prayer unless you're on my side. Though he doesn't say that, but the way he's reacting when Maddie and Danny come back to his house shows that was probably part of the plan. But and on top of that, again, it's not like and while Danny does have the typical teenager teenager view towards his mother, he does genuinely care about her, and he doesn't want her to be with Vlad. Even having a nice little moment where when she actually can touch it, when his powers are briefly shorted out and she can actually touch him, he's actually okay with hugging her, holding her hand, just doing all that, just kind of being around her, and it just shows that the only reason he didn't want to be near her was because of the Spectre Deflector. But on top of that, we then go back to the B plot of the episode with Jack and Jazz, and it's also more adorable things. While Jazz admits that she doesn't want to be a ghost hunter like her parents, and even admits that she's mostly helping her father for their own skin and to get a clear perspective on this, so that she can properly hate it later. At the same time, Jack is just proud to see her actually showing an interest, and there actually is more bonding between them. They're actually coordinated in what they do. She actually does know a lot of what she's doing, and it's really just nice to see them working side by side, and they obviously have a good time. They're obviously bonding. It's just all around cute, and it's just and it's the family and it's just really cute. That's what this episode is. It's cute. That's what it is. It is a cute episode. You see Danny and Maddie bonding as back-to-back ass kickers, and you have Jack and Jazz doing the exact same thing. It's just really cute. It's actiony and it's cute. And on top, it's just I think it's really the best way to describe this episode. It's really just cute. It's a cute episode. Enjoyable, but I think the real strength of it is just seeing the children bonding with their opposite gender parent. Seeing Jack and Jazz bonding, even though they're on two separate ends of the spectrum when it comes to ghost hunting and even intelligence. and then to see Maddie and Danny bonding while Maddie's and both trying to keep the other from falling into danger. Danny trying to keep Vlad away from his mother, and Maddie trying to keep trying to keep Danny safe from all the ghosts and so forth. It actually is just really cute, and you actually kind of do feel for Maddie when you actually kind of do feel for Maddie as she's trying to bond with Danny and in every. And I think one of the more painful scenes, and I mean like in terms of character, and intentionally painful, mind you, is when when she sets up a camp for her and Danny. Danny is just kind of glum because of how crappy things are going, and he's just sitting on a log. So Maddie goes to join him. She tries comforting him. She even puts her hand on his, but because she's wearing the Spectre deflector, it just shocks Danny and it causes him to recoil and just move his sleeping bag, which you really feel sorry for Maddie in this regard, and you understand why Danny is trying to stay away from her, but she's obviously trying to bond with her son, and to see her son just kind of push her away, it is sad, but it is natural too. That's how when kids get older, they start rebelling against their parents as they try to trying to assert their individuality, so to speak, while this may not be the exact same circumstances, it's clear that Danny is growing up, and it's just kind of that typical story. And it's a kind of that typical story, but with a hint of ass kicking in it. But at the end of the day, I think it works in that regard. And on top of that, I like seeing Vlad again. He's still kind of and while he is still, I like seeing that Danny had to get smarter in order to fight him off. The last time the last time Danny only beat him by calling a truce and saying if we don't call a truce, I'm blowing both of our secrets. But in this case, because Danny's actually been practicing, getting smarter, and actually manages to find a way to outsmart Vlad, which actually really is nice, as he finds a way to limit his powers and ultimately and even turn the tables on him, which I like. It's just kind of nice. It's kind of nice. It's Danny acting smart. And I think that's just the biggest. I think that's just the real meat of the episode, and I think that's the real strength. Just kind of seeing the kids bonding with their parents in fields in different ways in different fields is really nice. It's just it's just cute. That's what this episode is. It's just a cute episode, and yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I guess I guess I could talk about the ghost animals, and I'd like how design. And I guess that I like the designs. There were still some funny jokes. Like there was a scene where, as Jazz is getting ready to fight off more of the ghosts, she ends up putting on one of Maddie's jumpsuits, and he says, and Jack says, "I knew this day would come." And he pulls out a jumpsuit for him that looks like him, and says, "I made this especially for you when you were younger." I'm sorry, and it's just as big as him. It's like, I'm sorry, I thought you would inherit more from my side of the gene pool, the side that likes ranch dressing. Interesting, and fudge. Lots of fudge. And on top of that, there's also a backwash joke. I don't really understand why that's a thing. I don't know either, but it's not really that funny. But again, on the whole, episode's just cute. It's just the all-around cute episode. So, yeah. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I will see you next week. Take care.